Alright guys, I have another Magic the Gathering deck analysis for you guys. This is probably going to be my last one. This is probably the deck I spent the most money on, believe it or not, and it is a Commander deck. It's a 100 card Commander deck. The reason is because I used to have these 75 card 1 versus 1 decks, but then I converted a lot of the ones I used to Commander decks because honestly Commander is what most people play nowadays. It's just a fun format and it's a more popular format than 1 versus 1. So I converted my Bant deck to 1 versus 1. I convert now my I don't even know what to call this deck. I just always call it blue, green, white because that's what the colors that's used. I don't think this color has a specific name, like Jund or Naya or Bant. They all have names. Grixis, right? They all have names, but this color combination I don't think has a name yet. So I just always call it BGW, black, green, white. And yeah, I made this card. It used to be a 75 card deck. I made it into a 100 card Commander deck, which is full of singletons because that's what Commander has to be. And I need a Commander, of course, so let's go through the deck. First of all, these lands are courtesy of, these beautiful looking lands are courtesy of the new set, Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. Very beautiful looking lands. Command Tower, always gotta have this card in a Commander deck because it's a land that adds 1 mana of any color, essentially. So, with no drawback. Like, it doesn't even come into play tapped or anything. Reflecting Pool, another really good land to have in a multicolor deck. Not a very good land to have as your first one because it won't produce any mana, but it'll produce a mana that any one of your other lands can produce, which is really good for mana fixing, but only if you have your other lands already. This is a fetch land, Verdant Catacombs, for green and black. So you pay 1 life, sack it, and then you get any swamp or forest card, including non-basic ones, and then you can put it on the battlefield not tapped. So that's why it's a rare. It's non-tapped. If it was tapped, then it would be a common. Terramorphic Expanse or Evolving Wilds. All right, Collected Company. It's a nice card, 4 mana, instant. I look at top 6 cards. I put 2 creature cards with cost 3 or less into the battlefield. And that's nice because most of my creatures are 4 mana and under. So it's likely to find something. Another nice land here. Oh, Iganjo. Okay, Seat of the Empire. It's a new land. So it's it's better than a typical Plains because, I mean, it doesn't come into play tapped and it just adds 1 mana, white mana. So other than being non-basic, there's almost no reason to play a Plains over this. This is almost a strictly better Plains. And it has Channel, this ability. You can 3 mana, discard it, it deals 4 damage to attacking or blocking creature. And it costs 1 less for each legendary creature I control. So it's a Plains with a special ability. So it's really, really good card. And offends are the foremost. So it's 3 mana. This is 3 colors of this deck. White, black, and green. 4/4. When it attacks, I get +1/+1 for each tapped creature I control. And then if a card be put into opponent's graveyard, they get it exiled, which could be really interesting because there's a lot of decks that depend on the graveyard. So exiling it would be, you know, that would ruin a lot of the combo decks out there. Hero's Downfall, nice card, 3 mana instant, destroy target creature or planeswalker. Simple and effective. This one is just a land that acts as a plains, swamp, and a forest. So that makes it very, very useful and can be cycled too. The downside, it comes to the battlefield tapped, but I mean, the fact that it got 3 mana, it counts as a plains, swamp, and a forest, and it can be cycled. I mean, that's nice. Razor's Thicket, it's a green, white, comes to battlefield tap. I have to control, unless I control 2 or fewer lands. So if it's one of the first lands, it's better, it's untapped. So it's a pretty nice land, actually. It's early in the game, it's untapped, which is really useful very early in the game. And then later in the game, it will be tapped. Abrupt Decay, nice card, 2 mana instant. Can't be countered, destroys any non-land permanent with converted mana cost 3 or less. And there's a lot of non-land permanents with converted mana cost 3 or less. So this is actually really, really useful. Good card. Ooh, this is one of my favorite, probably my favorite piece of equipment. Mezwa's Jit. So 2 mana, it's very cheap. And then whenever it deals damage to anything, whenever it deals combat damage, yeah, okay, combat damage, then you get 2 charge counters on this thing. And then I can remove a charge counter to either give it +2/+2, or make some creature get -1/-1 until end of turn, or gain 2 life. So the fact that it's so versatile, so every time Your creature deals combat damage, you get 2 counters, and each of those counters can do any one of these things. You can either pump up the creature, or you can make another creature weaker, or you can gain life. Like, it's just so versatile, so good. One of the best equipment ever. Okay, this is a really good discard card, Inquisition Kozilek, 1 mana. Your opponent reveals their hand, you choose a non-land card with 3 or less, they discard it. So it's like Abrupt Decay, except it's 1 mana and it's from their hand. Which is probably why it's 1 mana, because you can't see their hand initially, but it's really nice. Thoughtseize is like, I mean, Thoughtseize is more powerful because it's 1 mana, they reveal their hand, you choose a non-land card, they discard it. I mean, it doesn't have to be converted, this has to be converted mana cost 3 or less. This doesn't have to be, it could be any card that's not a land, but they lose 2 life. I mean, you lose 2 life, that's the drawback of this card, but it's not too much of a drawback if you got rid of a really powerful card. So yeah, and it's 1 mana, so you can do it right at the beginning of the game. Path to Exile, really powerful card. I mean, 1 mana, you exile a creature, they get a basic land card, but who cares? You exile the creature for 1 mana at instant speed. Really good. Aether Vial, another really broken artifact card. It's 1 mana. It's an uncommon, but it really should be rare. So every turn you get a charge counter in this, and then you can tap this to put a creature with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters. And honestly, like, I have a lot of creatures that have like 2, 3, or 4 mana costs in my deck. So basically, you can put the Aether Vial on 2 or 3 charge counters, or 4 charge counters, and then at any time you can tap this and then put out a creature at an instant. So you can use this ability at an instant, right? You tap it on your opponent's turn, then you can put a creature out, and it can't be countered because this is an ability of an artifact. So it's not even playing a spell. So you're not playing a spell, you're using ability of an artifact, so it can't be countered, and you can do it as an instant. And it's 1 mana. So what a ridiculous ability, right? You get creatures out for free at instant speed, and it can't be countered. That's no wonder why it's so expensive now. I mean, they never reprinted this because it's so powerful. Okay, Kozilek Primates, 2 mana, 2/2, Exalted, that's nice, and then has built-in Naturalize. So it's very, very versatile. Nice card. Giver of Runes, another nice card to have, 1 mana, 1/2. By the way, this is a modern deck, so there's no old cards in it, okay? So only modern borders only, that's why no Mother of Runes. I have Giver of Runes instead. So Giver of Runes, different than Mother of Runes, not necessarily better. It cannot protect itself. Mother of Runes can protect itself, this one cannot. It only says another target creature gains protection from color of your choice, but it can protect it from artifact creatures. So that's the advantage of this card. Well, there's two things about this card is better than Mother of Runes. Added toughness, 1/2 instead of 1/1, and gains protection from colorless, which means it can protect against artifact creatures, but it cannot protect itself. It's just another target creature. So, pros and cons. Fabled Passage. Ooh, this is a nice land to have. You tap, sacrifice it, you search your library for basic land card, put in the battlefield tapped. Then if I control 4 or more lands, I untap that land. So, so it can only be basic lands, but unlike Evolving Wilds and unlike Terramorphic Expanse, that's why this is a rare, is because the ability that land can be untapped if you control 4 or more lands. So that's what makes it better than those common cards. Brumaz, 3 mana for 3/4, already really good stats. Vigilance. Then when it attacks, I get 1/1 white, 1/1 white token with Vigilance attacking when it attacks. Then when it blocks, I get a 1/1 token blocking. So whenever it attacks, I get a 1/1. Whenever it blocks, I get a 1/1. And it doesn't tap when it attacks. So really nice and really good stats too for the price. 3 mana. Vampire Nighthawk, I really love this creature too. It's so efficient. 3 mana, 2/3, flying, death touch, lifelink. 3 abilities for 3 mana. Just really nice, efficient creature. Kaya's Guile, 3 mana, instant, and pretty versatile card. You can choose 2 of these, so each opponent sacrifices a creature, or exile all cards from each opponent's graveyard, or I can create a 1/1 with flying, or I can gain 4 life. Or I can choose all of them if I pay an extra 3 mana. So, very, very versatile card. And Profane Command, another very versatile card. 2 mana with X, I can choose 2. A player loses X life, or I can return a card from a graveyard with X cost or less into the battlefield. So I can reanimate something, or I can kill a creature with -X, or I can make X target creatures gain fear. Fear is an ability that's not really used anymore. This is kind of an old card from Lauren. So fear basically means whatever creature has fear can't be blocked except by black creatures or artifact creatures. So it's a nice one to have. If you have like a really powerful creature, you don't want your opponent to block it, then you give it fear. So it's just a nice versatile card. Yeah, you can use it to like kill a creature, get rid of a creature. You can make a creature make a player lose the game if they have low enough life. You can bring back a creature. You can make a creature unblockable. So it's really nice. Okay, this is a card that I think is almost strictly better than the Forest, because it doesn't come into play tapped or anything. It just adds a green mana. So almost strictly better than the Forest. And then you can use this other ability, 2 mana to be a naturalize, basically. So this is almost strictly better than a naturalize, because you can also use it as a Forest. So yeah, this is just a really, really good card, and it's no wonder this is one of the most expensive cards of the new set, because this is so good. I mean, it's legendary. Okay, that's the only thing that's kind of bad about it. You can only have one. You can only play one at a time, but yeah, this is so good. I mean, it's a Forest that can be a naturalize if you need it. So yeah, really, really good. Oh, I do have Mother Runes. Okay, my bad. It's because this Mother Runes has a more modern border. I forgot that they actually reprinted this card. But yes, compared to Giver of Runes, here's the difference here. Giver of Runes, Mother Runes. Yes, so the difference, like I said, Mother Runes can actually protect itself. This one can only protect other creatures. And this one can protect against colorless. This one cannot protect against colorless. Otherwise, both really good. Both really good cards. Now, Reliquary, 3 mana for 2/2, and then gets +1/+1 for each land card in my graveyard. It's good if I fetch lands. Then can sacrifice, or my Fabled Passage. And then tap Sacrifice a Forest or Plains. That's any Forest or Plains card, not just basic ones. I can search my library for any land card, and I put it onto the battlefield non-tapped. So it's untapped, I mean. Yeah. So yeah, that's a nice ability. So we can sacrifice Forest or Plains, and then I can thin out my deck. I can get any card, any non-basic land cards too, and it gets pumped by land cards in my graveyard. Nice card. Soul Transfer. So this one, if I control Artifact Enchantment, I could choose both, but I can exile a creature or a planeswalker, or I can return a creature or planeswalker from my graveyard to my hand. So yeah, just a general nice card to have, very useful. Just nice Forest here. Bitter Blossom, nice card. 2 mana enchantment. So every turn I lose 1 life and I get a 1/1 token with flying. The only problem with this one is it's you have to lose 1 life and you have to get a 1. So if you're down on lower life, this is not good, because you have no choice. You're losing 1 life every turn, but you do get a 1/1 every turn. So yeah, it's only 2 mana, so it is fairly powerful. Black Sun Zenith, another card to mass wipe. 2 mana, you get X1 mono, -1/-1 counters on every creature. You shuffle this back in deck. What makes this better than Damnation is, so Damnation is really good just if you want to just destroy every creature. But you would use Black Sun Zenith if you have, like, if the opponent has indestructible creatures. Damnation will not kill them, but Black Sun Zenith will. And Mutilate will too, but Black Sun Zenith is, I think, maybe a little bit better than Mutilate. So yeah, you get -1/-1 counters, and even if they don't die, the -1/-1 counters stay on there. So that's another interesting point. And yeah, you get this back in your deck. You shuffle it back in your deck to reuse it again. So in some ways it's better than Damnation, and I recognize that Damnation is a good card, but this is also a good card. All right, Murderous Rider. 3 mana for 2/3. Lifelink, when it dies, I put it on the bottom of my deck. And then I can also use this as an instant. To destroy a creature or planeswalker, I lose 2 life. So it's a very versatile card. It can either be a creature or it can be an instant. So that's why it's a rare. It's a creature and it's a spell, so it's versatile. Sword of Light and Shadow is nice. So a creature gets +2/+2, gets protection for white and black. And then when it deals damage to a player, I gain 3 life. I can return up to a creature card from my graveyard. I can return a creature card from my graveyard to my hand, and I gain 3 life. And it gets +2/+2, and it has protection from white and black. So that's a lot of stuff to do. A lot of stuff, a lot of abilities, just for a nice equip cost of just 2. So it's very reasonable. And a casting cost of 3. Very reasonable equipment. Right, Liliana, Heretical Healer. So it's a 2/3 lifelink. Whenever a non-token creature I control dies, this gets exiled, and I get returner to the battlefield, and then I get a 2/2 creature token. And then when it's transformed, it becomes Liliana, Defiant Necromancer. So it's first ability, each player discards a card. Second ability, I can return a non-legendary creature card with mana cost X from my graveyard to the battlefield. So that's pretty nice. And then the final ultimate ability is I get an emblem. Whenever a creature dies, I return it to the battlefield under my control. So that's any creature, like any opponent's creature dies, I get it under my control. So that's really powerful ability. It's a pretty decent creature to begin with, actually. Knight of Autumn, very versatile creature. 3 mana for 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, I can either put 2 +1/+1 counters on this, or I can naturalize something. I can destroy an artifact or enchantment, or I can gain 4 life. So just very versatile card. That's why it's rare. Maelstrom Pulse, I like this card too. 3 mana, destroy any non-land permanent. That's anything that's not a land. So creature, planeswalker, artifact, enchantment, anything that's not a land, I can destroy it, and all other permanents with the same name. So if it's this is good if you have like opponent with a lot of tokens. You can destroy all the tokens at once. So pretty nice. Gazella the Broken Blade. Okay, 4 mana, 4/3. I mean, just look at the abilities. Flying, First Strike, Lifelink, and then okay, this other ability I don't think is important, but still 4 mana for 4/3 Flying, First Strike, Lifelink. Solid, efficient, solid. Finale of Devastation. So X mana and 2 greens. 6 remaining for a graveyard for. So this searches my library or my graveyard. So creature card with converted mana cost X or less put on the battlefield. So this basically can search from anywhere essentially. Creature card with X or less and puts it on the back on the battlefield, either from my graveyard or from the library. And then if somehow I have 12 mana to spend on this, then they all get +10/+10 to gain haste. So that's basically game over for the opponent. But that's only if you have like 12 mana. But otherwise, really nice card. Then Valid Keeper Silence. I've always enjoyed using this card. Very nice control card. 4 mana for a 3/4 flying. Activated abilities of your opponent's control can't be activated. So yes, that could be a lot of stuff that they can no longer do. Shuts them down. All right, Sword of Fire and Ice, my other nice sword of equipment. Again, 2 mana equip, 3 mana cost, very reasonable. The creature gets +2/+2, protection from red and blue, and then when it deals damage to a player, it deals 2 damage to a creature or player and a draw a card. So both really nice, useful abilities that trigger when they do damage. Okay, Anguished Unmaking, 3 mana, instant, exile a non-land permanent, I lose 3 life. I mean, really quick, easy way to get rid of something. I mean, I lose 3 life, but it doesn't matter because you could just... This is like the new version of Vindicate, isn't it? I don't have Vindicate in this deck because it's an old card, but this is almost a new version of Vindicate. I mean, you lose 3 life. Yes, that's worse than Vindicate because Vindicate you don't lose any life, but then it's exiled, not destroyed. So that's good. Actually, Vindicate you can destroy any permanent, even lands. So actually, maybe Vindicate can still be better in a lot of cases. But yeah, Vindicate I don't think has been reprinted. That's the problem. So yeah, so it's not necessarily better than Vindicate, but it's a new version, I guess. Gaze of Granite. So this is X mana with double black and a green. Destroy each non-land permanent convert. Okay, so this is basically Pernicious Deed as a sorcery. So Pernicious Deed is a enchantment that costs 3 mana, that's black and green, and then basically it says you use X mana and then you destroy each non-land permanent converted mana cost X or less. Essentially what it says. This is maybe not as good as Pernicious Deed because Pernicious Deed you can play it first and then use it at any time later. So you kind of have the threat of using it. You don't necessarily have to use it right away. This one you have to use it right away. Yeah, but then again, I don't think Pernicious Deed destroys Planeswalkers because Planeswalkers were not, they didn't exist when Pernicious Deed came out. So yeah, this card is not as good as Pernicious Deed, I think, but we don't have a reprint of Pernicious Deed. So this is a new version, not as good, but still useful, I guess. I mean, destroying each non-land permanent with converted mana cost, I mean, that's kind of like a Black Sun Zenith, and then if I really want something that would really wipe out everything like an Oblivion Stone, then I would use Gaze of Granite, I guess. So, yeah. Yeah, and I guess You could also think of Oblivion Stone too, but the difference between Oblivion Stone is Oblivion Stone, you need at least 8 mana to use it on the same turn, or you can just wait a turn and use 5 mana. But yeah, I mean it's different, I guess. Yeah, Oblivion Stone, if you want to use it right away, you kind of need 8 mana to use it. This one, you can use it, you know, obviously with less than 8 mana right away if you want to. But then Oblivion Stone destroys literally everything, every non-land permanent, without thinking about the mana cost. So yeah, pros and cons. I think Oblivion Stone, Gaze of Granite, I mean, yeah, pros and cons. I think it really depends on, the situation, right? So it's another thing like Pernicious Deed. Yeah, Pernicious Deed, Oblivion Stone, Gaze of Granite, they're all good in their own ways, right? So I still have to think about it. Testing out different cards. This is another cool looking swamp. Eternal Witness, really nice card. When it enters the battlefield, I can return any card from my graveyard to my hand. This is a broken card, that's why they've never reprinted it. Because it's 3 mana, you get back any card from your graveyard to your hand when it comes onto the battlefield. And you can abuse this. You can just return it to your hand, put it back on the battlefield, return it to your hand. Like, that's basically how my Venser deck works. It's a really broken card, that's why they never reprinted this. Just return any card from your graveyard to your hand for 3 mana. Tarmogoyf, card that used to be really, really expensive. 2 mana, and the reason why is just because it's really big for the mana cost. I mean, it's at least a 3/4 usually. Sometimes it can be up to a 7/8 almost. So the power is equal to the number of card types among all cards in all graveyards, and the toughness is equal to that number +1. If you think about all the different card types, yeah, I mean, it's at least a 3/4 by the time you play it, usually. It's more likely a 4/5 or a 5/6, and it's sometimes even a 7/8 for 2 mana. So yeah, really good card because it counts all graveyards, not just yours. Charming Prince, very versatile card. 2 mana, so it comes on the battlefield, and then you can either look at the top 2 cards of your deck and then kind of sift through them, make your next draws better, or you can gain 3 life if you're low on life, or you can exile another creature you own, like for example Eternal Witness, and then return it to the battlefield and then triggers again. So you can do something crazy like that. So a very versatile card, only 2 mana. Gideon Backblade. So this is a powerful planeswalker. So 3 mana, as long as it's my turn, it's a 4/4 that's indestructible. And then the first one, up to 1 other creature I control gains Vigilance, Lifelink, or Indestructible. And then the only 2 abilities, but the second one is exile target non-land permanent. So pretty powerful. Yeah, only 2 abilities, but I think it's fairly cheap. It's only 3 mana, and pretty nice, I think, abilities. Oh yeah, these 2 lands are both dual lands. So one is a forest plains, and the other one's a swamp forest. They're dual lands. They can come into play tapped usually, but if you pay 2 life, they will be untapped. So it's really versatile. Depends on how much you need them. Windswept Heath is a fetch land. You can search your library for a forest or plains, and then it just comes on the battlefield untapped. So it's a fetch land. Prismatic Vista, also really, this is a kind of like, it searches for a basic land card and puts it on the battlefield. So why is this a rare? Why is this so expensive compared to Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse? The reason is because it's untapped. So you tap, you pay 1 life, you get a basic land card, it's untapped. That's literally the reason why it's a rare and why it's so expensive. Because untapped makes a huge difference. You can use it right away. There's a big difference between untapped and tapped. Alright, Godless Shrine. This is a dual land for plains and swamp. So yeah, same as the others, but it's plains and swamp. Kitchen Finks, one of my favorite cards. Using a lot of my decks. 3 mana for 3/2, can be paid with green or white. Comes onto the battlefield, I gain 2 life, and then persists, so it means when it dies, it comes back with a -1/-1 counter, and then I gain 2 life again. So, just pretty nice card to have. One of my favorite planeswalkers, Elspeth Knight Errant. 4 mana, 4 counters. The first one gets a 1/1 token. The second one, creature gets +3/+2 and gains flying. And then the last one, emblem, artifacts, creatures, enchantments, and lands are all indestructible forever until the end of the game. So, yeah, very nice ability. Right, Green Sun Zenith, a very powerful card actually. X mana, I can search my life for green creature card with converted mana cost X or less, put on the battlefield. It's kind of like the finale of that finale card that you saw earlier, except it's only green cards, which is why it's only one mana less. And then I get it back, I shuffle it back into my library. And it's only from the library, it's not from the graveyard. So that's why it's one mana less, but it's almost as good as the finale one. Birds of Paradise, pretty much a staple. It's 1 mana, tap, add 1 mana of any color. Just super useful for mana fixing. You gotta have it. Senseless Divining Top, really nice, useful card. It's 1 mana. They're never gonna reprint this card again, by the way. It's just a crazy good card for an uncommon. It's now a rare. Should be rare. You use 1 mana to look at the top 3 cards and put them back in any order. Then you can tap to draw a card and put this back on top of the deck. So what you can do with this is you can basically use 1 mana every turn to make your card draws a lot better. And it's only 1 mana, so you can use it at the beginning of the game. And then, if you really need that card right away, you can draw it. And then if you need to save this from artifact destruction, if they use a naturalize or something, or a disenchant, then you can just put this back on top of your deck and save this from destruction. So really good card. Alright, Sword Lord of Innistrad. So 4 mana, first ability, you get a 1/1 creature with lifelink token. And the second one, you get an emblem, which means emblems are forever. You can't really destroy them. Creatures you control get +1/+0 forever. And then and that stacks, I guess. And then the last one, destroy 3 creatures or planeswalkers, and then you get them under your control. That's really good. Right, Garrett Relentless. Right, another planeswalker. So the first ability deals 3 damage to a creature. That creature deals damage back to this. And then if it has 2 or less counters on it, he gets transformed. So make sure that the creature doesn't kill this guy. And then the second ability gets a 2/2 wolf token. And then when it transforms, it becomes Garrett the Veil Cursed. First ability, you get a 1/1 token with Death Touch. And the second one, you sack it. Sack a creature, and then you search your library for a creature card you put in your hand. It's basically the survival of the fittest type of ability. A tutor ability, and then a worldly tutor or whatever. Actually, you put in your hand, so yeah, it's a survival of the fittest or shaman, fauna shaman ability. Last ability, kind of like Overrun. Gain creatures you control get trample, get +X, X number of creature cards in your graveyard. So, pretty good card. That's why I have this guy in a lot of my decks. This guy I also have a lot of my decks. He's one of the first planeswalkers, still really good. First ability, untaps 2 lands. Second ability, you get a 3/3 token, and the third ability, is Overrun. So your creatures get +3/+3, train trample until end of turn. It's basically end of game over for the opponent unless they can prevent that, some damage or something. So really good card. That's why it's still even used. Sorin Vengeful Bloodlord. So as long as it's my turn, creatures and planeswalkers I control have lifelink. So yeah, that's a passive ability, first of all, and only 2 abilities here. First one deals 1 damage, and it's really I gain 1 life too, because, you know, I get lifelink. And then the second ability returns a creature from X or less from a graveyard to the battlefield. So it's a reanimation ability. So it's just generally pretty nice. Not overpowered, but just pretty nice. No ultimate ability. Alright, Wrath of God. I don't have Damnation in this deck, but I do have Wrath of God. So it's the same thing, just as white. This is the original, right? Damnation came after. Even though Damnation, I think, is a more popular card. Wrath of God is the OG destroying card. So destroy all creatures, can't be regenerated for 4 mana. Can't get more efficient and simpler than that. Okay. Marry the Cursed. Interesting card. I've been thinking about putting this card in and out of this deck. I'm not sure about the value. 4 mana, 3/2, flying first strike haste, and then when it deals damage to a creature, you get a +1/+1 counter. I mean, there's 4 abilities for 4 mana, so it's very efficient. But I just wish this was like maybe like a 3/3 or something like that. It's just right on the borderline, right? Because I have so many good creatures I was thinking about. Still not sure about Marry the Cursed yet. I mean, it's a really nice creature, has a lot of abilities, but there's so many good creatures, man. Right. Nissa of Shadowed Bows, 4 mana, and then landfall. Whenever land enters the battlefield, this gets a counter. And then only 2 abilities. First one untaps the land, and then you can have it be a 3/3 creature with haste and menace until end of turn. And then the second ability, you can put a creature card with mana cost less than or equal to the number of lands I control from my hand or graveyard with 2/+1. So I can reanimate a creature that's less than or equal to the number of lands I control, and then it gets 2+1/+1 counters on it. So no ultimate. I mean, that is the ultimate ability, but it's not like a really crazy one or anything. Okay, Shovel Bane of Monster is interesting. 2 mana for 1/3 Death Touch, and then every turn, if my opponents control no permanents with bounty counters on it, and then I put a bounty counter on a creature or planeswalker my opponent has, and then whenever an opponent on it, whenever that thing with the bounty hunter on dies, I gain 3 life and draw a card. So, I mean, it's an interesting card. It has Death Touch, 2 mana. I'm not sure actually about this card in this deck yet. I'm still thinking about it. It's actually not one of the... Yeah, I mean, it has Death Touch, which is nice. The bounty thing is a little bit interesting, but it's not like super powerful or anything. It's just, okay, you put a bounty counter on something, and then you know you're going to kill it. You know it's going to die. And then I get 3 life and a draw card when it does that. Okay, it's okay. It's 2 mana. Can't really go wrong with 2 mana. Leyline Prowlers, versatile card, 3 mana for 2/3, Death Touch, Lifelink, tap, add 1 mana of any color. So it's 3 abilities for 3 mana, efficient. Mana fixes my mana, kills stuff, gains me life, and it's not even a rare, it's an uncommon. During the Siege Tower, ooh, good card. I used this a lot back in the day. 3 mana, 0/5, but each creature assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power. So really it's a 5/5. Because it assigns combat damage equal to its toughness. But then it changes how every other creature I control deals damage too. So like Leyline Prowler will now do 3 damage because it does 3 toughness. So, and then Cheville will also do 3 damage because it's 3 toughness. So it actually changes the way how my other creatures do damage too. So that's very interesting. Anyways, 3 mana for essentially 5/5, which is pretty nice. Assassin's Trophy is nice. 2 mana for instant. You destroy any permanent an opponent controls, including a land. You can destroy lands using this. Anything, really. And then they search the library for a basic land card. So it's a, yeah. Who cares if they get a basic land card? You can destroy anything the opponent controls. So anything from planeswalkers to creatures to lands, whatever. Dark Confidant used to be one of my favorite creatures, actually. 2 mana for 2/1, then every turn I look at the top card of my library and I put that card in my hand, I lose life equal to its mana cost. So it's not as good as Friction Arena, because, well, you lose a lot more life potentially, but it's cheaper. It's only 2 mana, and it's a massive card advantage, especially early in the game. Early in the game, you won't care too much about your life. So, and in the Commander game, you have 40 life. So the life doesn't matter too much at the beginning of the game. So it's really nice to have this at the beginning of the game. You're getting an extra free card. People don't understand, actually. Oh, why would you want to lose life? If at the beginning of the game, you really need to have extra cards to get more options, and you don't care about your life too much, because you usually start off with a decent amount of life, and Commander, you start out with 40 life. So that's actually a decent amount of life. And you get an extra card every turn. That's a massive advantage. So it's for 2 mana, too. So you can use that at the beginning of the game. Okay, Aethros, God of Passage. 3 mana, 5/4. It's an indestructible enchantment creature. And then if I have a total amount of mana symbols, total mana symbols of all my cards on the battlefield is less than 7, it's not a creature, it's an enchantment. But if it's more than 7, then this becomes a creature. And then whenever another creature I control dies, I return it to my hand unless someone pays 3 life, which is kind of broken, honestly. I mean, think about it. When any of my creatures die, it goes back to my hand unless someone pays 3 life. It's going to happen every time one of my creatures dies, so it's really good. Gliss of the Trader. I love this card because a lot of people don't know, like, this card isn't too famous or anything, but I just like playing it because it's such a nicely designed card. 3 mana, 3/3, first strike, Death Touch. And then whenever creature or opponent dies, I can return an artifact from my graveyard. I don't care too much about this last ability, but first strike and Death Touch, that's awesome. Like, basically, whatever creature it attacks, and since that's first strike, it's always going to attack first, unless the other creature has first strike, right? Or double strike. So for most creatures, they don't have first strike, so it attacks first, and then has Death Touch, which means that creature dies. So what happens is you can use this creature and kill almost any other creature without that creature even doing damage to this creature. So that's super good. I mean, it could be a 10/10, it doesn't matter. This creature deals damage first, it kills it immediately with Death Touch. So it's just an awesomely designed card. I love it. I don't think it's ever been reprinted too. Friction Crusader, I like this card too. Again, 4 abilities actually for 3 mana. You got first strike, protection from red, protection from white, and infect. So effect means it deals damage in the form of -1/-1 counters, which is actually better in some cases because it's you can kill indestructible creatures, and it deals damage to players in the form of poison counters. So it doesn't matter how much life a player has. If you have 10 poison counters, you lose the game. So yeah, if your opponent has like 1,000 life, you do 10 damage with this thing, they still die. They still lose the game. Poison counters do not care about your life. So this is a really good card. Yeah, 4 abilities for 3 mana. Okay, Campbell low console allocation is really good in multiplayer games because whenever an opponent casts a non-creature spell, that player loses 2 life and gains 2 life. So this is any spell they play that's non-creature. That's for any opponent. So really good in multiplayer games. You'll be gaining a lot of life and they'll be losing a lot. Okay, Concealed Courtyard is black and white. It'll be battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer lands, so it's really pretty good in the early game. Blue and Marsh, it's the same thing, except it's for green and black. Have another Sorin here, okay. So this Sorin, Solemn Visitor. First ability, until my next turn, creature control gain +1/+0 and gain lifelink. Second ability, get a 2/2 black vampire creature token with flying. And then last ability, emblem at the beginning of each. At the beginning of each opponent's turn, that player sacrifices a creature. So that's pretty nice. Not too powerful, but it's nice. Okay, Rankle Master Pranks, 4 mana for 3/3 flying haste. Then when it deals damage to a player, I can choose that player discards a card, or they lose 1 life and draws. Or each player discards a card. Each player loses 1 life and draws a card, or each player sacrifices a creature. That's pretty interesting. It's a symmetrical effect, but you can use it to your advantage, of course. You just choose the one that's going to favor you, right? And yeah, it's a nice card. I mean, 4 mana for a 3/3 flying haste is okay already, but then you have this effect, which you can choose which one is advantageous to you to use. Then it becomes a really good card. Okay, Seraph of the Scales, 4 mana, 4/3 flying. Then you can either gain Vigilance or Death Touch until end of turn. So you have the ability to. You got to pay mana for it. You got to activate it, but it has the ability. Then Afterlife 2, when it dies, you get 2/1/1 flying tokens. So just generally, I think this is a nice, efficient card, and I love those kind of cards. Sandstorm Citadel, it's a non-basic land, but you can add 1 mana of any of these 3 colors. Again, I don't know the name of this color combination. I just call it GBW, which is black, green, white. Maybe it has a color combination name now. Marsh Flats is a fetch land for black and white, so you can search for any plains or swamp, put it on the battlefield, untapped. That's why it's rare. Okay, Nighthawk Scavenger. I think this is another new card. 3 mana. Ooh, look at these abilities. Flying, Death Touch, Lifelink, and the power is equal to 1 plus the number of card types. So it's got a Tarmogoyf effect. It's got a Tarmogoyf effect for the power, and then it has Flying, Death Touch, and Lifelink on top of that for 3 mana. It's a pretty good card. Fauna Shaman. Ooh, yep, nice card. 2 mana. I can do 1 mana, discard a creature card, search my library for a creature card, and put it in my hand. So it's got a built-in Survival of the Fittest, which is a card that cannot get reprinted because it's on the reserve list. So, but this one has the ability built in. Kuno's Hound of Aetherios, another really efficient card, because this card has 5 abilities for 3 mana. 3 mana for 3/3, and it's got Vigilance, Menace, Lifelink. Creature cards in graveyards can't enter the battlefield, and players can't cast spells from graveyards. These 2 abilities are kind of really sideboard type of abilities. You don't really know if they're going to activate depending on the opponent. But having a 3 mana for 3/3 Vigilance, Menace, Lifelink is already really good. So efficient. I like it. Siege Rhino, 4 mana for 4/5. Trample, enters the battlefield. Each opponent loses 3 life. You gain 3 life. So it's really good in multiplayer games. Pretty nice card. Mythos of Nethril. So this is a 3 mana instant. I could destroy any non-land permanent, and then if it's a creature, or if if I only use black to cast a spell, it can only destroy a creature. But if I use green and white, which are the colors of this deck, to cast this, then it becomes a 3 mana, basically a 3 mana spell, and then 3 mana of all colors, right? So it's going to be black, white, and green to cast a spell, but then I can destroy any non-land permanent. So that's pretty good. That's that's instant. So that's only Not as good as a Vindicate, because a Vindicate can destroy anything, but it's an instant, so. Now the Throne of the Last Troll, 4 mana for 4/4, can't be countered, hexproof, and 2 mana to regenerate. So that's pretty good. I mean, yeah, all these abilities means it's really hard to get rid of. So you can't counter it, has hexproof, which means you can't target it, and then 2 mana, it means it survives damage. So really hard to get rid of. Questing Beast, 4 mana for 4/4, Vigilance, Death Touch, Haste, can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. Combat damage will be dealt by creatures you control, can't be prevented. And whenever it deals combat damage to an opponent, it deals that much damage to a planeswalker. So you can deal damage to a player and its planeswalker at the same time. So it's got a whopping 6 abilities for 4 mana. That's a ridiculous card. I mean, this card's crazy. 4 mana for 4/4 is already like pretty good stats. And then Vigilance, Death Touch, and Haste. Oh, that's already good. You got me right there. Then you added these other like abilities, just icing on the cake, really. I mean, it's really icing on the cake. That's a lot of icing. Nice card. Last, we have another card. It's kind of like again, kind of like Vindicate, but not really. It's got it's 1 more mana. It's 4 mana, but it's instant, and it's pretty simple. Exile target non-land permanent. So it's better than Mythos of Nethril in the sense that it exiles it, but it's not as good too because it's 1 more mana. So, anyways, I have both of these in here. So this is actually better most of the time because it's less mana, but this might be better if you have 4 mana and then you really want to exile something, right? You don't want it to be in the graveyard because maybe they can return it back to the battlefield. Maybe it's one of those creatures that always comes back from the graveyard or something like that. Like there's a lot of creatures that are really annoying like that. But yeah, this will definitely get rid of it permanently if you exile it. So that's it, guys. That is my green, black, white deck Commander version. There's a lot of interesting cards in this one. So let me know what you guys think. And yeah, that's it. As always, thanks for watching.